to identify the source. It is weird, and it's weirdly consistent with the way that material about this subject of I don't like to use the term anti-gravity, though that is the popular term. But when we're talking about manipulating gravity, gravity control, or synthetic gravity, there is another story where a very established journalist named Nick Cook. Are you familiar with Nick?
No.
Okay, so Nick wrote the book, The Hunt for Zero Point, the search for anti-gravity technology. That was published in about 2001. And Nick tells a similar story. He worked for a publication called Jane's Aviation Weekly, which is a very established defense industry journal. And he was writing about aviation and is an expert in that subject. And somebody just dropped on his desk
he froze.
An article about research that had been done in the realm of gravity research in the 1950s.
Wow.
And he still doesn't know, and this is 20 years later, he doesn't know who dropped that on his desk. So there is arguably something very strange going on here, where there is perhaps something going on and knowledge of it is being slowly leaked out over time, perhaps to get civilization and humanity ready for this next level of technology that has been developed in the dark.
Interesting. Yeah, that's crazy. So it starts with this email. You're intrigued by this email. What happens next? Do you just start?
Well, I did find a website.
To write the book?
Yeah. The decision to write the book unfolded over about the next 6 months. When I got that email, and again, I was motivated to find another story to write about, like I had just finished this book about the kid who invented television when he was 14 years old in the 1920s. And you want to be careful, because if you start me on that, I'll go down that tangent. And I do think I'm recently finding more ways that the two stories are related. But in my mind, they are of a piece. But when I got that mysterious email, because I was motivated to find another subject to write about, I then, like anybody would do, I went on the World Wide Web and searched for Townsend Brown and found a website that was hosted by a friend of his family who had known his widow and his daughter, Linda Brown. And I found that website, and I read. So this is somebody who has explored anti-gravity and then aspects of Einstein's general relativity, and has been associated with UFOs and extraterrestrials. And I was okay with the science part of that, but as soon as I saw UFOs and extraterrestrials, it's like, yeah, do I really want to go here? And I don't discount the possibility of UFOs and extraterrestrials, but it's not an area that I've ever felt motivated to dig into. Anyway, that was I found that website. This is in the summer of 2002. I found that website, and I contacted the host of the website, and had sufficient credibility at that point, because I had written a book about an obscure 20th century inventor, that it was a fellow named Andrew, and Andrew introduced me to Brown's daughter, Linda. And Linda and I struck up a correspondence, started as a snail mail correspondence, I'll say in the fall of 2002. And we became very comfortable with each other. She appreciated what my perspective was and what my angle was. By then I had the book published. I sent her a copy of the book. She liked the book that I had written and felt that I could do a favorable treatment of her father. And so over the course of those several months, we formed a collaboration. And then in the spring, I think it was April of 2003, I flew out to Las Vegas. Linda came up from her home in the high desert in Southern California, brought with her these two Rubbermaid tubs that had what was left of the Townsend Brown archives, and we went to work.
Wow, that's fascinating. So here you are. You're someone who writes books about obscure inventors,
obscure 20th century inventors,
and little do you know, you're going to uncover some I don't know what you'd call it, deep UFO conspiracy, or ancient alien technology conspiracy, I would say.
Well, we're not really sure what it is, but it's something that falls under all those umbrellas, and the prospect as well of something that we're going into the realm of deeply black classified research.
So let's take a step back, because not many people know who Townsend Brown is, and I'd like to give a high level overview of who he is and sort of. I guess the stages of his life. Well, from your own words,
let me do my introductory rap, okay? So when people ask me to do a summary when we're starting one of these conversations, I will start this way. Yeah. Have you ever heard of the Ionic Breeze air purifier?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's this tower-shaped device that moves and cleans air without any moving parts, and it's the without any moving parts that's kind of the critical aspect of that device. It moves the air using an electrokinetic technology. Mm-hmm. So the story behind the Ionic Breeze air purifier.
Yeah.
I think he froze.
Named Townsend Brown when he was about 18 years old in the 1920s. So Townsend Brown discovers this anomalous electrical effect. And what I learned as I began to get into the material was that there is a cadre of people who believe that anomalous electrical effect, when applied with different materials and in a different manner, the same effect produces what I'm going to call synthetic or artificial gravity, or a gravitational field around the device that it's being operated in. And that's what people call anti-gravity. And I'm not sure why I object to the use of anti-gravity, but it's not like we're creating our own artificial gravitational fields, not just negating gravity. So that is what caught my attention, was this idea that the Brown's discovery was in effect the physical manifestation of what Einstein was trying to find in his research for the unified field, where he was looking for the unity between electromagnetism and gravity. Yeah. The discovery, we learned in the 19th century that electricity and magnetism are all part of the same thing called electromagnetism. Mm-hmm. And what Brown was looking for was the electrogravitic connection between electromagnetism and gravity. And that's what he believed, and that's what Einstein was trying to define in all the research that he did in the latter years of his life, looking for what they call the unified field. Wow. So over the course of the next 6 years, I went into this material, and there's stories about how things, after about a year of futility, we found some covert sources that began telling us some inside information. And I managed over the course of those 6 years to put together about a 500-page first draft.
Wow.
But what I realized as I was getting into the rewrite for the second draft was that Townsend Brown spent half of his life indeed engaged in some kind of classified military research, and the other half of his life engaged in covert intelligence operations, much of that to cover up the classified military research. The net effect of all that is I had written the biography of a man whose story could not be told.
And it was still 500
and exactly. So it's at this point in the conversation where I turn to my listener and I say, so you ask me, so Paul, what is that book about?
Paul,
so ask me.
What is that book about?
It's about 500 pages.
Wow, that's fascinating. That's fascinating.
Why do you think his research was being covered up to the general public? Like, do you think it was just to be used for military purposes, or was it maybe because, it was the time of the robber barons and people making money off of oil and whatnot, or combination?
Well, that would be, the idea that we have been exposed perhaps in the last 60 years or so to technologies like gravity control, and in the case of Farnsworth nuclear fusion, that would obsolesce the fossil fuel-based economy that we've been living in for the last 150 or so years. That's one possibility, that industrial interests, on the one hand, want access to this technology for their own purposes, but don't want it in general circulation because it would undermine their industrial foundations, their economic base. That's one possibility.
What are the real world implications? So if someone were to come out with this technology, they would essentially have complete military financial control over the world. If this technology does exist, why hasn't the U.S. I guess taken advantage of it? Would you say they're that scared of something this powerful that they would just sort of keep it in their back pocket?
You're asking really good questions here, and I don't know. I have to think. I don't think I have really good answers, because the first question you have to ask is, do these technologies in fact exist, and what evidence do we have that they do? Mm-hmm. And of course, when you're dealing with something in a black realm like this, the evidence is going to be very scarce. Mm-hmm. So did you guys, this is something I've been talking about a lot lately, did you have a chance to see any of the HBO series Westworld?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so do you remember the question that why is his name escaping me, Jeffrey Wright as Bernard is asking Dolores? Remember the question he asked her, the one they're using to determine if the robots are becoming sentient?
No.
Yeah, he asks, do you ever question the nature of your reality? Because the ability to question your reality is what suggests the presence of sentience in these supposed androids. And so the questions that we're asking now when we start to talk about Townsend Brown, and does this research really exist, and has it been hidden from the world in a way that just rarely ever escapes? We are asking the question, do you question the nature of your reality? Is it possible for something like this to exist and be kept completely out of our purview and out of public knowledge? Right. Then the question is, we were saying a moment ago, is there's some economic consideration? Perhaps there is some strategic, political, military consideration, or maybe there is, the answer that I gravitate toward is that maybe there is some higher power in the universe that considers this knowledge that is really outside of the purview of this particular species.
Interesting.
We've reached the point, they've given us as much as they're going to. Right. Now, the obvious contradiction there is that if it's being developed in the black, then there are elements of humanity that have access to it. And I don't have a good answer for you for why it's not more readily available.
Interesting. Yeah. So let's go back to the book. How many solid recorded viewings, how many times was this experiment that he produced actually viewed and written about by scientists and people? Do you know the experiment I'm talking about with the two plates levitating? Or no, I think he froze.
Of recorded events where the configuration that I was talking about earlier, where it's the device is other than the ionic breeze that we were talking about. So the difference is the ionic breeze is the anomalous electrical effect has taken on the name of the Biefeld-Brown effect.
Right. I'd love to get into that.
Yeah, and so the ionic, there are two. What we're talking about is something called an asymmetric capacitor, where one of the electrodes is larger than the other electrode in the capacitor. And a capacitor is a device that stores an electric charge. And what Brown observed in the 1920s was that rather than the separated electrodes being neutral, the negative electrode would move toward the positive electrode in a way that caused the whole apparatus to move. It created thrust. That's the Biefeld-Brown effect. Now, the substance between the two electrodes in a capacitor is called a dielectric. And there are two kinds of dielectrics. There's what's called a fluid dielectric. Air can be a fluid dielectric. Water can be a fluid dielectric. Or there's solid dielectrics. And that's the difference between something like the ionic breeze and the things that we are trying to find with any certainty whether or not they produce the synthetic gravitational effect.
I see.
That would be attributed to the Biefeld-Brown effect. So, the Biefeld-Brown effect itself remains a source of some controversy and doubt in scientific realms.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're asking a couple of different questions there. When has the Biefeld-Brown effect been observed? And I would say countless times. So if you go on the internet, for example, and just go to YouTube and search for the word lifters, you will see these devices that have been developed over the last 20 years or so. It's like a kite almost, made of aluminum. It's a triangle configuration. So you've got a triangle of aluminum foil with a couple of posts, 3 posts coming out of it, and a wire connecting the top of the post. That's a lifter. Okay. And when you apply a kilovolt current, a multi-kilovolt current to one of these lifter apparatuses, it will immediately levitate itself.
And that is said, that is apparently due to ionic breeze.
That's ionic breeze.
Okay.
Or the ionic wind, right. And so that is a fairly well verified effect.
Okay.
What remains undocumented, I guess would be the right word to say, and this is why Jesse offers his challenge at the end.
Yeah, the 50 grand.
Yeah, the 50 grand challenge. Can we demonstrate the Biefeld-Brown effect with a solid dielectric, and particularly in a vacuum? See, I've written about this recently. There was, back in, I think, 2006, remember the show Mythbusters?
Yep.
Yeah.
Mythbusters did an episode where they disproved the anti-gravity effect of the lifters by running it in a vacuum. Well, of course, a lifter is not going to work in a vacuum because it needs the air to be the fluid dielectric.
Right.
So take away the air and it's not going to do anything.
Right.
So now we've proven that, but we haven't proven that it doesn't work, because with a solid dielectric, you don't need air.
Interesting.
So that's what Jesse is saying in his challenge. He wants somebody to demonstrate the solid dielectric in a vacuum, and it should work in a vacuum. Now, I have one acquaintance, borderline kind of a colleague, who about almost 15 years ago, or maybe more recently than that, attests to having built what we call a gravitator, which is the solid dielectric expression of the Biefeld-Brown effect. He built one, and when I contacted him as the book was coming out, he told me that the device that he built did indeed demonstrate the effect with the solid dielectric. Really? And the evidence, what we're seeing is the evidence is, and again, it's not documented. I more recently asked him for some documentation, and he claimed something about proprietary information and was unwilling to share it. So make of that what you will. But the testimony that I got, and I'm sharing this knowing that I am putting something out there that I'm unable to state with any authority, was that you place the device on a scale, all right, and it weighs in at like 3 pounds. And then you apply the current to it, and then it weighs like 1.5 pounds.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So the difference between mass and weight is gravity. Okay. So an element will have the same mass wherever it is based on the number of protons and electrons in the molecules.
Right.
But its weight is relative to its gravitational field. That's why if you're on the surface of the moon, it's a much smaller celestial object. So you have 1/6 of the gravity of the Earth.
Right.
So a human on the Earth, on the moon, weighs 1/6 what they weigh on the Earth. Right. So arguably, if this demonstration I'm describing to you is documentable, then we would have a demonstration of the Biefeld-Brown effect being demonstrated with a solid dielectric, and at the very least, causing a change in the weight of the device, which would suggest that some gravitational impact has caused a change in the weight.
Right. Interesting. So it could be any significant change in weight. So let's say this effect is
now you don't get weight from a 3-pound gravitator to a flying saucer.
Right.
But you arguably have some demonstration of effect. Right.
So
just sorry, not to sound like a total moron, but what is a dielectric? A dielectric? Like, is it like a molecule? Like, how does it compare to like a molecule?
If you give me 1 second, I will show you.
Yeah, that'd be great.
That's a good question.
Right? Like, just like in layman's terms.
Yeah. I think dielectrics is like a science.
Crap.
The science of dielectric.
It's like a branch of physics.
But
all right. Okay. Cut and come back.
Yeah, we're good.
Okay. So the individual that I'm describing who built the solid state gravitator, he sent me some samples of what he was using as a dielectric. And so I've never shown these to anybody, but here's one of them. It is a disc of a material called barium titanate. And here's the other one that he sent me.
Barium titanate?
Barium titanate, yes.
Interesting.
Is that an element or?
Well, it's an alloy. It's a ceramic quality alloy based on, I guess, the element of barium.
Okay.
All right. So that's what we're talking about. So you'd have a stack of these. So you'd have a metal electrode, the dielectric.
Okay.
Which is this ceramic material that has a very high, what's called the K factor. It's the ability to store a charge is measured in something called K. Right. So you have one electrode, you have the dielectric, you have another electrode. Then you have another dielectric and another electrode, and you stack them up. And that was what Brown was experimenting with in the 1920s, the device that he called the gravitator.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
so my friend Mike, he built one of these things with these.
Yeah.
Oh, I think you froze. All right. We got you back.
No, I was interested.
I'm back.
Have you ever seen those rides at the amusement park, and they call it the Gravitron, and like you spin around it, it makes you hit the wall, like, and you can't get up out of it. Like, that reminds me of.
Yeah, but that's going to be a centrifugal
totally
effect. That's got nothing to do. I don't think that has anything.
Just the word is very similar.
But I'll give you a note there, because one of the stories in the book, The Man Who Mastered Gravity, is when Brown demonstrated his devices for the Navy at Pearl Harbor in 1950. There is actually an account of that demonstration in the report that the FBI compiled on him during the 1950s. And what he demonstrated for the Navy at Pearl Harbor was described as a carnival-like a toy-like carnival ride.
Interesting.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's supposedly true that he was showing false or fake experiments or presentations to throw people off.
So the story that you're referring to there is it is about the demonstration in Pearl Harbor, and that may have been the pivotal event in the Townsend Brown saga.
It sort of shamed him, yeah.
It didn't shame him. I think I would say it angered and annoyed and scared him, because what happened was he discovered that there was a mole in the works, and Yeah, and that some of what he was demonstrating was seen by eyes that it wasn't intended for.
Right.
And the way the story was told to me, and I always want to qualify, I am telling tales that were told to me. And I I accept that I'm telling stories and that they are not necessarily verifiable, but they tend to add up in a way that I think lends credibility to them. But the story is that then Brown went on a campaign to use the fluid dielectric version of the apparatus to discredit the science in general and divert attention from the solid dielectric version, which continued to be developed in the shadows somewhere.
And imagine what kind of guy this was, that he would essentially discredit himself his whole life, go down in history as like, oh, the guy who invented this fan, all in order to, in his mind, save the world. Like he sounds like an awesome human being.
Yeah,
if this all, went down like this. But so I have a question from what we were speaking about earlier. Let's say the this effect is 100% real.
Okay.
Can all of the UFO sightings that we hear about or see today, the way these UFOs fly in the air, like how they go underwater, how fast they go, all that good stuff, can that all be attributed to this effect? Can you see how is that the technology or the source? Is that what they're running on, essentially?
Well, I'll answer that in two ways. First, I'll say I have yet to be invited upon any such craft that would enable me to give you a firsthand answer to that question.
Right.
It is, but what you are touching on is part of the story of what did intrigue Brown at the level where he was involved. When we get to the point starting in the late 1940s, when we're having lots of sightings of unidentified flying objects,
right?
Brown does get involved in wanting to research and learn more about them to find out if, as you're asking, is this their means of conveyance? Is this their means of motivation? Is that a test for the phenomenal speeds that we witness? Their ability to change directions in a very unconventional way. So Brown was interested in wanting to know the answers to those questions. And in 1950, mid 50s, I forget the exact date, but he was involved in the creation of the first citizens unidentified aerial phenomenon witnessing organization. That was NICAP, the National Investigations Committee on Aerial Phenomena, which was kind of
interesting.
It was kind of the prototype for like MUFON, which comes along later.
Interesting. That's fascinating. So I'd sort of, and we can sort of take this wherever you feel is relevant also.
Mm-hmm.
But I'd sort of like to delve into the whole declassified side of this, and explain any government and CIA involvement with him, Townsend himself, and then the work. If you want to touch on that.
Well, there are stories about he being involved in various espionage operations. The one in particular that is described in the book was the Berlin Tunnel. Then, backing up from before that, the story is that he was parachuted into Germany in the closing weeks of World War II. Now, we don't have a CIA yet, but the Office of Strategic Services, the OSS, was the precursor to what became the CIA later. And the OSS and various other European intelligence agencies are getting into Germany and looking for
he froze.
We're using to send code from headquarters to troops in the field and so forth. We're all familiar with the Enigma, for example, but there were other technologies as well. And part of the motivation that's going on here is it is becoming apparent to some elements of the military and intelligence establishment that once the war is over, we are going to have a formidable adversary in the form of the USSR. And the Russians are coming in from the east, and the allies, the European and American allies, are coming in from the west. And there is this scramble on the ground in Germany to get to these things first. And so that's on the very surface of all this, is who can get to the cipher teams and the cipher machines first. But there were also rumors of unidentifiable advanced flying technologies. Now, you look like young guys. I'll bet you're familiar with a band called the Foo Fighters.
Yeah.
You know where the Foo Fighters get their name?
No.
Well, during the particularly in like the fall of 1944, so we're nearing the closing months of the year, there were many, I don't have an exact number, but there were many reports of Allied flyers seeing in the skies over Germany seemingly controlled balls of light that would approach their aircraft, sometimes follow their aircraft. They appeared to be under some kind of intelligent control. There are many reported sightings of these phenomena, and they were popularly called Foo Fighters.
Interesting. And this is from one event, or this one sighting during World War
Many
II?
events. Many events.
Okay. Wow.
No, there were many sightings of the Foo Fighters during the fall, mostly of 1944. And there's an account of that in my book, the Man Who Mastered Gravity. And the story is, so that is one of the mysteries. There are a ton of mysteries that surround what the Germans had besides what we know they had. There is the whole Operation Paperclip, where so many German scientists were brought to the United States after World War II, not the least of which Werner von Braun, who was the engineer chiefly responsible for all the rocketry that got man to the moon in the 1960s.
Right.
Okay, sidebar here. Keep track of where I'm going, because you're going to might need to reel me back in.
No, keep going.
Last year in December, I had occasion to go. I live near Nashville, Tennessee, and I went finally to Huntsville, Alabama, which is the Manned Space Flight Center. There is where they designed and built all the rockets. That's the Rocket Science Center. And that's where Marshall Space Flight Center, I think it's called. And that's where Werner von Braun, who came over from Germany after World War II and spearheaded the American rocket effort, that's where he worked. And there is a very fascinating display there. And I don't know if I can do it justice, but it shows, like the first rockets that von Braun worked on when he was frankly working for the Nazis in Germany was the V2 rocket. And then it goes all the way up to the Redstone and the Atlas, and then the first Saturns. And the Saturn V is so big they had to put a hole in the ceiling for it. But the reason I mention this is because they show the V2 rockets in this display, but they don't bother to mention what the V2 rockets really were, which was a terror weapon launched into England during World War II, and Werner von Braun was one of the principal engineers. So
that is that's crazy. Wow. Wow.
So
is the idea that the Germans were on to some super tech that we just had no idea about, and that's why there was a scramble to get them over to the US?
Yes, that's part of the lore. And there are a lot of stories about the Germans were working on advanced propulsion. They weren't really nearly as interested in the atomic bomb as we were, because they had all these other things going on. There is a realm of speculation remember I mentioned Nick Cook's book is called The Hunt for Zero Point. There's the whole 0 point energy phenomenon where we're assuming that the space between the nucleus and the electron is filled with energy and that there might be a way to extract that energy. And now we're building not just an now we're building not just an atomic bomb, but a quantum bomb that would make a thermo. The line in the book is, in Nick's book, is that if we were able to extract this energy and weaponize it, it would make a thermonuke look like a firecracker.
Oh,
That's
God.
crazy.
So you wonder if this technology has, if humans have been exposed to this technology, you might not be surprised that there might be a force somewhere in the universe that would try to keep us from having any more access to it.
So yeah, I'd like to dive into that a little bit, because if humans have discovered this type of technology back in the 40s or the 30s, that it could explain all UFO sightings ever.
Yes.
And there could be no such thing as aliens, and it's just some, undercover super tech that the US or whoever, some shadow government is flying around. Or it is UFOs. But I think it's been established that there's something out there. There's some kind of unknown technology, whether it be from humans or the UFOs or aliens. What do you have to say about that? Do you think there is some higher force that's sort of governing what we do here? Because I know UFOs are sighted all around nuclear sites and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. We're getting into a metaphysical realm here, which I personally feel like I'm on the threshold of putting a flag in. And it's good that, for me, it's personally good that we're having this conversation, because I'm going to give a talk at a conference in North Carolina in June. And I think this is the theme that I want to reach for, is this idea that there is some superior intelligence in the universe that over the course of millennia has been revealing the secrets of what Tesla called the great wheelwork of time to humanity. And and
the great wheelwork of time.
I'm sorry. Tesla's phrase was the great wheelwork of nature.
Of nature.
Yeah, that was Tesla's phrase.
I'd love to delve all into this, but continue.
Okay,
continue.
So the way the point in that discussion that I've come to is that, first of all, I'll make this observation, that much of what we now accept as advanced physics begins with mankind's desire, starting probably in the 18th century and more so in the 19th century, to understand the force of electricity. Now, consider for a moment that Homo sapiens, as we know it, has been walking the earth for somewhere between 30 and 100,000 years. And of those 30 to 100,000 years, we have had useful access to electricity for less than 200.
Wow.
Yeah.
So we just got there. Okay.
Yeah, right.
And so the culmination of all of that interest and study happens in 1905 with what's known as Einstein's Annus Mirabilis, where he releases the 4 papers that define the cosmology of the 20th century. And so when I'm on this thread, I will say, so at that point, the inner workings, the secrets of the universe were revealed to mankind. And if there is, let me think if this is the best way to say this. So I'm going to come back to that in a second, because I want to jump forward to something that Jesse speculated in the video that we were talking about, where it seems like advances in physics arrested after World War II. the kinds of advances we had at the beginning of the century.
They did.
No big breakthroughs like that after World War II.
And that's when all those
did.
three-letter government organizations started to show
That
up
too, starting in 1947 with the National Security Act. Yeah.
Also,
All right,
physics went down like a weird path that sort of goes nowhere.
Yeah, that's the whole string theory, quantum gravity thing that we talk about. But let's come back to that if you want later, because I've got in my folders here an article from the New York Times from about 2 years ago that makes the same observation. Now, I'm giving it credibility that it wouldn't otherwise have because it was in the New York Times. And it says that the kinds of advances in physics that we experienced before World War II seem to have stopped in 1945. Do you want to take care of that?
Yeah, sorry. The dog is barking. The dog is barking.
Yeah. Let's go. We'll pick it up.
Actually, can we take a 1 minute break real quick?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. Sorry about that.
Yeah, no problem.
Taking a 1 minute break. Hey, sorry about that.
You have eyes.
All right, sorry about that.
All right, so let me here. I'll pick it up this way. Previously on the Baptized Machine podcast. So we're talking about the dearth of major scientific breakthroughs after 1945, which what I found fascinating about the New York Times article was that it pegged that absence of breakthroughs to that particular date. So now we'll back up. And in 1905, Einstein reveals that energy is equal to mass times the speed of light squared. Now, if we were talking about the Farnsworth story, we would back up even further because that was in one of the later papers that Einstein introduced. And the first one was the first paper he introduced was about the photoelectric effect, and that's why you and I can see each other. But we'll come back to that. Yeah. So the secret of the universe, E equals mc squared, is revealed in 1905. And what did we do with it? What did we do with it in 1945?
Make a big ass bomb, or is that early?
Make a big ass bomb.
Yeah.
So if there is an intelligence in the universe that is monitoring mankind's use of this information, they witnessed Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and they sat back and said, "That's enough."
So interesting. So you think you're saying after that incident, they stepped in and somehow hindered our actual learning, or just hindered the widespread knowledge of greater technology?
I think what I'm saying is that any breakthroughs that might have come after that, they are unwilling to share because we have not demonstrated our worthiness of any more intelligence than we've already gleaned.
Interesting.
Yeah, E equals mc squared was enough. And you know, again, a lot of this dovetails with honestly, what got me interested in all this in the first place was when somebody first explained nuclear fusion to me in 1973.
Mm.
And the Farnsworth story is in the same way that we're talking about unfinished work in the realm of gravity control. What intrigues me the most about and so when you ask how if we are being visited by a craft or vessel that are able to bend space and time and get here from other star systems, my supposition would be that the two components of what makes that possible is first, high energy thermonuclear fusion in a small reactor like Philo Farnsworth was developing in the 1960s, and using that as the source of extremely high megavoltages to power a synthetic gravity device to either propel the device at celestial, if not past light speeds, or because we're talking about gravity as a curvature of space, using that combination of technologies to bend the space so that your destination is that much closer. Wormhole technology.
So you're sort of going forwards and backwards in time in a
sense. Right.
Interesting.
Which brings me to the third alternative of what might explain the reported phenomena that we're trying to understand and investigate. I think there's three, and there may be more possibilities. Extraterrestrials, terrestrial secret classified work, or time travelers, people coming from our own past, present, or future.
And that's a common theory as well, because
different dimensions.
It would make sense. The time traveler theory is hard to wrap my head around, though, because I don't know.
All right, so let me help you with that, because I've seen one illustration that I found really useful in a movie called Synchronic. Now, I can send you a link to the video because I extracted this piece of video. Synchronic is a time travel drama.
This is a movie?
It's a movie. It's on Netflix.
I love time travel movies, so I need to
Okay, so you need to check out Synchronic, because there's a scene where one of the characters holds up a phonograph record, an LP. Okay.
Yep.
You guys are familiar with vinyl, right? Okay. So I mean, I don't know where our generational differences are here, but what he says is that time is like you know how many grooves there are on the average phonograph record?
No.
One.
But that
it's one continuous groove all the way through. Yeah.
Oh, I see.
Okay.
Okay.
So what he's pointing out is that even though the needle is at one place in the groove, all the other grooves are still there. All the other songs are still there, but the needle is just in one place. So what happens if you get the needle to skip? You're suddenly in a different time frame.
See, yeah, and I understand that, but where I struggle with is going back in time and changing the future, or going into the future and changing the past.
Well,
and I guess that's possible, and we would never know, you know.
Well, okay, so time travel, there is a thread of time travel discussion in The Man Who Mastered Gravity. And I
need to read this book.
The theoretical basis for it is, so in 1915, in his theory of general relativity, which has since been proven, because that Einstein presents the thesis that gravity is induced by what he calls a curvature in space-time. And now, you know, I haven't quite wrapped my head around how time and space are exactly the same thing, but that's a fairly accepted tenet now in 21st century science. Mm-hmm. So we're talking about not just space and not just time, but space-time. And the presence of a large celestial object like a star or a planet bends the space around it. And that will cause objects going around it to orbit because they are in that curved space. And the most common illustration you'll see of this is you'll see the idea of a membrane and a ball dropped in the membrane, and you see the membrane curve around the ball. Then you throw an object into it and it will go around the curve in that membrane. So that's the idea of the curvature of space. But space and time are the same thing. Space-time. So if we are talking about the ability to create gravity, which means producing a synthetic curvature of space, then it is arguable that you are also creating a synthetic curvature of time. Now, where you go with that, what you do with that, what the technology would look like, way over my pay grade. I'm not selling nearly enough books to devote my time to that one. But what I wanted to get to is there's an element, there's a point in the story where Townsend Brown actually says to his colleague that I have codenamed Morgan, he asks him, what would you do if you could travel in time? And Morgan answers that he would go back in time to save his little sister who had died in a swimming pool accident.
Right.
And what Townsend says is, well, there are rules against that. Now, I don't know if those are physical rules or metaphysical rules, which is to say it is physically impossible, or there's a rule that says, you damn well better not do that, or we're going to wind up in an episode of a crazy TV show like Loki.
Interesting.
Yeah.
With multiple timelines going in multiple different directions.
You know, that would make sense if time travel is somewhat possible, that there are very strict rules that, rules either like natural rules from the universe or, from whatever, that prohibit total chaos.
Yeah.
Which you would think that if time travel was possible, there would be a potential for total chaos. So that would make sense.
I read it just before I got into, or while I was finishing the book in 2002-03. I read a book, the author Emily St. John Mandel. Are you familiar with the graphic novel Station 11 or the HBO series? It was based on a novel by a woman. Station 11 is a novel by Emily St. John Mandel. Very timely because it's a pandemic story. But she later wrote a book called The Sea of Tranquility, and it's a time travel novel.
Oh, I've heard of
that.
Yeah.
And she presents the proposition that if time travel were possible, if you could go back in time and alter events, then that would have to be a very carefully and tightly regulated thing. And that's where we get into what is this group that I identify in the book as the Caroline Group. Is that the agency that governs time travel?
Oh,
because you would not want anybody to be able to go back in time and change their own destiny.
Right. So and I know we're running short on time. I would love
Are
to.
We just got started.
I know.
We want to have you back. We
scheduled another guest. Unfortunately, I wish we didn't. But
he's like
okay.
He's the governor. He's a candidate for governor of North Carolina. So it's like totally unrelated. But
the Republican candidate?
No, he's a libertarian candidate.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, this guy.
I've seen a little bit about the Republican candidate. I didn't know anything about the libertarian candidate.
He looks like not a good dude, the Republican one. Yeah.
So are you guys in North Carolina?
No, we're in Colorado. It's a storm right now. Yeah.
Nice.
I would love to have you on for part 2, 3, 4.
Yeah, okay.
I want to talk about the Carolina group too.
Yeah. I'd be curious to hear like kind of when you get the pushback you get too, because a lot of these ideas are not mainstream, even though we do have some evidence and to back them, and kind of how you go against that too. So we'd love to have you back on, Paul, if you're open to it.
Well, remember what Schopenhauer said. He said the truth always goes through 3 phases. In the first, it is ridiculed. In the second, it is opposed, often violently. And in the third, it is recognized as having been self-evident all along.
I love that. I love that. Yeah. I love that. And I love this topic. specifically the Townsend Brown saga, if you want to call it that, because it has its tentacles in everything, and it connects the I guess you would say the unknown or the blank portions of so many different areas. Like if you plug in Townsend Brown, I don't know, it
froze you.
I think Jesse did an awesome job with that documentary, and I want to see a part 2 of that documentary too.
All right. Well, can I have a moment before we go? Can I have a moment of shameless self-promotion?
Yeah, please do. Okay, and we're going to have you back on too. So.
Okay, great. Well, I'm good because I'm going to suggest what we talk about the next time. So we have been talking about my second book, The Man Who Mastered Gravity. It's reversed on my screen. Does it look right on your screen? Is it reading left to right or right to left?
Yeah, it's reading the right way for us.
Okay, good. Okay, so that's The Man Who Mastered Gravity. That is the biography of T. Townsend Brown. That was my second book. This is my first book. This is the story of Philo T. Farnsworth, the boy who invented television. And I do believe that the two stories are of a piece because they both talk about, first of all, unfinished work and unknown technologies and the spiritual dimension of how much is mankind really ready to adapt to. So maybe take a look at that one and just remember that every video screen on the planet, including the ones that we're looking through now, started with a sketch that Philo T. Farnsworth drew for his high school science teacher when he was 14 years old in 1922. Wow. If you take this guy out of the equation, and this is a phone call.
Yeah. Wow. And Paul, if you shoot us an email with anything you want us to include in our episode description on YouTube or Spotify, we'll do that. We'll do that for you.
Yeah. Okay.
And we'll try to post this tomorrow, and then might just have you try to finish. It might just ask you to make sure the download's complete. Once you close out. So
all right. Well, it's been great talking to you guys.
Yeah, you too. And we'll have you back. We'll schedule something else.
Okay. Now, do I get one question before we go?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. How does one get to be a Wall Street bitch?
Actually, that's a good question. That's a question. When we started the podcast, we came up with names on the spot live, like that's literally just the first thing that came to me. So I do need to change it.
Yeah, well, I thought, I mean, forgive me for if this is sexist, but I thought I was going to have an interview with a woman for the first time.
No. We do have them on sometimes as co-hosts, but yeah, next time we'll get a female co-host next time.
And I want to delve more into technology and inventions as well, because that fascinates me.
Sure.
Did you shut it off? Oh, yeah. The way that one invention can totally change the trajectory of civilization for the good and bad. You know what I mean? Like the invention of the gun. Like, what did that do to us? You know what I mean? Really? So, Well, we would love to have you back.
Yeah. Okay. So are we done? Have we stopped recording?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, here's our outro. Yeah, thanks so much, Paul. We appreciate you.
Thank you, guys. It's been great talking with you. Yeah, I look forward to seeing the result. All right.
Yeah. All right, see you later. All right, there's another episode down.
Damn, I wish we could talk to him longer.
Libertarian candidate for governor in North Carolina. I'm going to let him in. I'll give him a quick intro. We'll let him start talking about himself. And then Wall Street Bitch, I think we'll go live if that sounds good with you. How are you today?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, we're just going to hop right in it. Maybe we'll do a little recap.
Yes, sir. You want to move the camera down a little bit?
Yeah.
So you can see our pecs. Ooh.
Oh, we are masculine men.
Peck Life 2024.
Welcome, Shannon. It is very dark where you are. There we go. We would love to be able to see your beautiful face.
Hey, welcome.
Hey, welcome. Still a little dark. Oh, now it's pitch black. No worries. We can always edit this part out. I'm gonna just get it so we can go live here on Twitter too.
This snowstorm is wild.
Yeah.
If you live in the Colorado Front Range area, you know what I'm talking about, but we are getting some serious snowfall.
Mm-hmm.
I used to live there.
Oh, really?
Oh, when?
Parker.
Oh, in
Oh,
Parker?
Parker.
Nice.
Awesome.
Yeah, we're just in Northwest Denver. So.
Yeah.
Right on. Well, you're in North Carolina right now, right, Shannon? You're running for governor under the Libertarian Party.
Lieutenant governor now. I actually lost the primary, but we were playing some games. I'll explain it if we want to
Interesting.
talk about that.
Is there any way? I mean, we can post editing, but is there any way you're able to turn your microphone up a little bit right now, or it's just a little low?
Let me see if I have one.
Or yeah, maybe this built-in on your computer.
Oh my God. Mayor Mike Johnson just posted a video of him in a snowplow. Like, come on, bro.
He's so full of shit.
I can talk a little louder. Will that work?
Yeah, that works perfectly. Yeah, we can just turn it up too. All right, you ready? Yeah. So Shannon, why don't you? We usually like to start by just having our guests give a little introduction about ourselves. Our podcast, we cover a wide range of issues and people and things, from like urine therapists to we've had the America Shaman on, that guy Jake Chansley.
Yep.
And to be totally honest, we don't really identify as like liberals or Republican, Democrats or Republicans.
You made it sound bad.
Yeah, that didn't sound bad. But we've been labeled like a right-wing podcast just because we're willing to listen and have a conversation with anyone. But we really do appreciate you coming on, and you're one of the more level-headed guests I think that we've had on in recent times, just based on your social media presence. So we really appreciate your time.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you, Shannon. Yeah, do you want to start out? So basically, we'd love to know, what you're running for, where you're from, and maybe like your 3 or 4 tenets or pillars that you're about.
Excellent. You want me right now?
Yeah. We're rolling.
Okay. I'm Shannon Bray. I'm a Navy combat veteran. Served 6.5 years in the Navy. Shortly after getting out of the Navy, I kind of returned to my first love, which was technology. When I was a kid, I got a Timex Sinclair 1000, which was like a computer about that big.
Yeah.
Nice.
So when I was a kid, I was just, I'd spend my time on there. When I got out of the Navy, the entire computer world had changed. I went from the only computer I had was my dive computer down to, I think at the time, Windows 98 was just about coming out. So it was like on those stage of computers. But then I started an IT career that now has gone on for 27 years. But in the meantime, once during the Trump years, I was working for the government, Department of Defense, as a cybersecurity analyst, and the government kept shutting down. As a libertarian, I don't mind that, but as someone who works for the government, it was really starting to weigh on me. And I believe the last one was about 3 months or so. During that time, Walter Jones, who was a congressman on the East Coast here of North Carolina, had passed away. And I was just like, screw it. I'm just going to go run for office because I've got nothing better to do. Wasn't even my district. I was driving 2 hours just to go talk to these people. Lost horribly in the primary. Not horribly. I lost by 9 votes, but there wasn't a lot of votes for libertarians. But learned a lot. I learned a lot about how I thought the government worked was not really how the government worked.
Interesting.
And from there, I started my Senate runs. Ran twice for the Senate. Just recently, I started the campaign as a governor candidate, but before the whole campaign started, we came up with a little plan. We're working the North Carolina, and no one really knows this yet because we haven't announced it. So you guys are actually the people who get to hear it first.
Breaking news.
Awesome.
But Mike Ross and I have been long time friends, and we were going to primary together primarily to get more media attention. Because if you're in a primary, you get more television, you get more interviews, and people actually care more.
Yeah.
So we primaried against each other to get that, with the caveat to whoever lost would fall into the lieutenant governor spot, take that place from the candidate that's currently holding it. So we would go out, get our message out, get our names out, get our faces out, and one of us would be lieutenant governor candidate, and the other one would remain the governor candidate. So that's where
can you explain the difference? Can you quickly explain the difference between lieutenant governor and governor? Because I've never heard that before.
Vice president, president.
Based off of what I know, the governor does all the work, and the lieutenant governor does nothing.
So vice president and president.
Right.
So you run and you're elected together. Is that the idea?
That's what we're doing this time, because in North Carolina they don't offer a ticket, but we're running as a ticket.
So interesting.
Both our faces will be on the same signs, and we're really trying to use any of the attention that we've recently gained to kind of help us in November. And
I did not know you could do that. That's awesome.
Yeah, well, there's a loophole in North Carolina which no one's ever done it. So we discovered it, we figured it out, and that's what we decided to do.
Yeah, I saw that you were arrested like a few times recently. So is that kind of intentional, just to bring awareness to the campaign, or what? Can you explain that a little bit?
Some of it wasn't. I always knew, like during the Senate campaigns, I did want to have some sort of scandal to kind of get that attention. Now, what I got arrested for this time, was really kind of, so I was charged with domestic violence, assault on a female, and felony strangulation, and the distribution and manufacturing of marijuana.
Oh, wow.
The distribution and manufacturing is more in line of what I wanted to be busted for, because all of it's been dropped. I've been found not guilty. But what happened there was I had told my wife was cheating on me with a guy in the neighborhood. I found out about it. I told her I wanted a divorce and she wasn't going to get anything.
Mm-hmm.
So then she weaponized the domestic violence laws of North Carolina, told the cops that, I threatened to kill her. The cops actually came to the house. They talked to me. They talked to the kids, and they were like, "Yeah, we don't see this as an issue." But then she went down to the Wake County magistrate and filled out this little novel of what a mean person I am.
Yeah, so
and they came and arrested me.
Yeah, so you're kind of a victim of those laws that are meant to protect women. Although, I did see that video that went viral. I think it was from 2021 though, but it's of that dude from Florida, and he shoots his wife because she's trying to run away.
Yeah,
and it sounds like there is the extreme end, but it sounds like you got kind of the short stick on the other end. Yeah.
Wait. So you're saying you purposefully wanted to get arrested in order to bring attention to your campaign? Is that?
I didn't mind the marijuana. The marijuana was actually hemp. I had 25 plants in the house. I was posting it on social media. I was, posting on Instagram the growth and of how my plants were, and I was constantly posting stuff. So
Thomas Jefferson, he made T-shirts out of hemp. So are you gonna start a Shannon Bray clothing line, or what was your plan with the hemp?
Well, a lot of it was just I was in the process of trying to learn how to grow marijuana so that I would eventually start growing it, and I will. And at least, I now know how all the marijuana loopholes work in the state of North Carolina. All of that was dropped, with the single exception of there was a cart, the little vape carts in my garbage can. So they charged me with possession under an ounce. So out of that whole story that sent me to jail 3 times, I spent 8 days in jail.
Wow.
For domestic violence issues.
Yeah.
It was all that's been dropped, and so I caught a weed charge. But in the process of all of that, my spouse I had just gotten a reverse right shoulder replacement from a military injury.
Okay.
And
thanks for your service, by the way.
Thank you. During the confrontation, I was kind of she wanted my cell phone. I was keeping my cell phone away, and she'd pulled my right arm down and separated the titanium pieces. In fact, it's around here somewhere. I have here it is. This was part of my shoulder before that I now have as a paperweight. So I ended up having three surgeries over the course of 3 months. In October.
Are you saying you're a victim of domestic violence?
I am.
Yeah, but do you think you've ever committed it yourself? Like you've never physically or emotionally abused a woman?
I've never. Let me make sure I state this right. I've never, in anger, put my hands around anybody's neck or hit them.
In anger, but you have, without consent, put hands around consent. Someone's neck.
No, that's always
anger.
Consensual.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I'm in my experience, if you get charges, especially domestic violence, your chances at being elected are pretty much thrashed. So how are you handling that? And I don't want to get too, I don't know how much you want to delve into this, because it sounds
I'll tell the whole story. It doesn't matter to me.
Okay. Well, I don't know. Do you want to get into that?
Yeah, I think this is an important topic. I think
because we could just talk about the issues, but I have a feeling that people, the voters, will want to know what that charge is actually about.
Yeah, because there's a lot of those podcasters what would be considered like the manosphere and everything, ran by people like Andrew Tate, where I fully would consider that guy like a human trafficker, like pedophile, sex offender. He's probably done domestic abuse if he's done all those things. But yeah, I'd like to hear kind of your story once you have that narrative against you, which honestly we didn't know. But how do you counter that? And we're not accusing you of anything.
A lot of it was so the first thing I had to do was prove myself innocent. If not, the party would have dropped me, because the Libertarian Party has the non-aggressive principle. So we're anti-war, we're anti-violence, we're anti-force. And a domestic violence charge like this is completely against everything that I believe in, and also the party. So it was extremely important that I was found not guilty. And as soon as that happened, I regained a lot of support from my party. But there's still a lot of other people who didn't really hear that I was found not guilty. They just saw the WRAL and all the news stories. And they're very good about trashing me when it first happened. But then once I was found not guilty and I tried to get them to run those stories, nobody would run it. In fact, I was on a TV interview 2 weeks ago, 20 minutes talking about charges and all of that. And then the last 5 minutes were on, the issues that I would face, as governor at the time. And they cut the first 15 minutes of it out because I started talking, because they were like, well, why are you running if you have this big baggage on you? And I was like, this is the perfect time for me to run, because my wife weaponized laws against me. And what better time to speak about that during an election process when when you can actually talk about correcting some of these loopholes in there, because it was complete lack of due process. No one asked me anything. Once I was arrested that last time and was thrown in jail, my voice was in silent. I couldn't talk to judges.
Yeah.
I mean, nobody cared what came out of my mouth until I was found innocent.
How does
So-
that make you think about other laws that may still exist that are actually weaponized against females, or like right now I guess a hot topic would be transgender people. There's a lot of laws being weaponized against them, and I'm not even talking about like children. I'm talking about just adults above the age of 18. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I think any law that can be weaponized needs to have some checks and balances. And you think that they're there, but I've now gone. This happened August 13th, and it's now March 14th. I have yet to be able to get back into my house because even though I was found innocent, I still have a protective order against me against my house and my cars. So I can't go home. So right now I'm for 6 months I was staying in Airbnbs all across the state of North Carolina. Now I'm staying with a Navy buddy of mine while I kind of work out the last couple of things in court. But she has an active warrant for her arrest right now for felony assault that she will not be able to be found innocent of, because I have the x-rays, the pictures, here's my shoulder. All of that kind of is going to kind of get reversed. But it's taken me 7 months and pretty much my entire 401k to defend myself, to kind of come out, not on top, but just to kind of come out to where I can function as a human being. Because amongst all of this, they take away my Second Amendment rights. You lose a lot when you're in a position that I'm in. Even being found innocent, I still have all of this kind of riding above my head until she's been found guilty. But she's currently running away from the cops. They can't find her.
Yeah. Well, I'll be totally honest. I have 2 more questions. I don't know who to believe in this situation. It's my first time meeting you. We're on a video call. I've never met your ex-partner.
Sure.
She could totally be right. You could be full of shit.
Could be.
Vice versa, But I am curious. Just what did you think about that case about Carol Eugene? I think Jean Carroll about Trump, where he's ended up having to pay her like billions of dollars outside of court. Do you think he actually did something to her, or that's all like made up by the media?
It's tough to say. I personally, they offered me deals. I turned them all down because I knew I was innocent and I was going to fight like hell to not accept the deal. They offered me plea deals all the way across the board. They were even going to drop all the marijuana stuff right away if I pled guilty to domestic violence. And I was not going to do that, because that's not what happened. And I don't want that stigma on me. And I have evidence. I mean, I have digital evidence and documentation and all of that, and witnesses that back up my side of the story. In fact, when we were in court, the judge listened to the testimony of both sides and dismissed it. Said that she was coaching her son, and that it sounded like she got caught cheating, and she went for my throat.
Well, I'm sorry. I'm sorry to hear about all that personal things you have to go on, but that's not why we're here to have you on. We're really here to hear kind of about the problems in North Carolina, the problems you see in North Carolina, and how they maybe interconnect with the rest of the country and the rest of the world. Totally. And I do know. I don't know much, but I know there's like a pretty controversial, I'll just say like flat out like racist dude right now who's kind of the front runner as the Republican. Is that correct? If I'm
a black guy,
right? Yeah. It's like a black racist guy. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
Which, yeah, if you
he
could
is
speak,
not
I don't
for
honestly know
the
much
Black
about
community.
that. Yeah, if you could kind of like give us some context of the political scene in North Carolina,
And-
what's going on, why you and I think you said his name was Mike Ross are
Yep.
kind of on that libertarian ticket now as governor. Because I mean the racist problem. I would love to just hear more about that because it's interesting. When it's not yeah, it's just interesting, and then like why that gets so popular, and then I'd also love to hear more about why not just go Democrat then.
Gotcha. Yeah, Mark Robinson, who's been endorsed by Donald Trump, hardcore Republican, very, very much on the extremes, on the transgender rules, and really kind of he doesn't necessarily carry a lot of blacks vote support with a lot of the way he communicates about the black community. There was another candidate, Morgan, who was really kind of getting the black vote there. But with Mark Robinson is kind of an extremist, and if he was white, he would definitely be identified as racist. But he's not the best option for the
What are
black
some
community.
examples of Mark Robinson's messaging? Like, so is he anti-white? Is he anti-Asian? Is he like a
No,
self-hating black? What is
he's
it?
kind of in the he's kind of more anti-black, not anti-white. Yeah, he diminishes a lot of the black problems and their struggles for equality. He just kind of squashes it. Like the sit-in in Greensboro, wherever they had that sit-in where they had the black kids come in from school and they sat in at that bar and and that really kind of caused a big push for racial equality.
Yeah.
His stance on that was it took away black rights because it hurt the economy, as opposed to kind of offering support, which I can't think of one person, nobody else that would have made that same statement.
Yeah. So would you go as far to say he's a segregationist or?
Yes. Yeah. I
really?
think he would definitely support that.
Wow.
So what's like the top 3 biggest issues that you're hearing when you talk to people in North Carolina?
The economy, education, and healthcare.
Yeah, and that's pretty universal too. So that makes sense. So let's start economically. I don't know how much control or legislation you can really put into place to affect that. But do you have any ideas at the state level that you'd like to put into place?
Yeah, absolutely. Because as you know, the federal government has been overprinting money, sending it overseas, and we have an inflation problem. Well, it's really tough to kind of counteract the inflation issues at the state level here in North Carolina. So on the libertarian platform, we're here to reduce taxes. In fact, I was going to eliminate state taxes all the way across the board.
Just to back up, right? Currently in North Carolina, what do state taxes fund?
Everything.
Right now, it funds quite a bit of everything, including some of the education.
So, how would you make up for that deficit?
Well, we're funding systems instead of students. So the first thing I would do is change the education process to where the money follows the student, and we stop dumping all of this money into a failed education system. Ideally, to make the public education, compete with private education and charter schools, with the idea that competition is going to make the best product, and whether it's public or private, ultimately we want parents to be able to choose the best thing for their children. Now, in the state of Louisiana, or in the state of North Carolina, I was born and raised in Louisiana. It's roughly about $13,000 a year per student. So we would have that money follow the students, and that money would then pay for their teachers, and the teachers would actually make a lot more money than they are right now.
That's interesting.
25% of our education is also paid by the. We have a education lottery.
Wait,
So
just to go back, where would that 13,000 per student come from? Like, where would you generate that money?
Oh, from the state still.
And then
we have the education lottery. There's still a lot of money in taxes that are still going to get paid. It wouldn't nullify the taxes right away. On my platform, it would start out with reducing them and then making them optional.
How has that fund gathered money so far?
How's the fund for
the state education fund? How has that gotten money so far? Where does that come
from the state education lottery, or is where?
And is that through tax dollars, or that's like through
lottery
tickets?
People gambling.
Okay, cool, gotcha. Interesting. Yeah, that could work, but then what if we get into this hypothetical situation where everyone's like, oh, North Carolina's got some good schools, I can go there and move there, and then you have an influx of all of these children. Do you think the free market will regulate? Yeah.
Florida, New Hampshire, Tennessee, they all got good education systems, and they don't charge. They don't have a state income tax.
Yeah.
So ideally, reducing the income tax is the way that we kind of get over the inflation that's currently happening to us. So, and there's a lot of other things that we would end up reducing, like the size of our government. I would ultimately put libertarian-minded people in charge of various departments, and their job is to downsize to where we're functional. I worked for the federal government most of my life. And, at the end of the year, we would be buying hardware, having pizza parties or whatever, just to spend whatever our budget was to justify it the following year. So whether or not you needed the money, you spent the money.
Right.
And that's a practice that I would very much like to get away from. And it happens not only in North Carolina, but in every state in the United States.
Businesses too, yeah.
What are the biggest social issues right now in North Carolina? I know people are concerned about the economy and education, but in terms of crime and homelessness, poverty, are any of those a concern for
Absolutely.
the state?
Criminal justice is way on my list, primarily because of it was already something that I was going to focus on. But, I was the only candidate who spent, got arrested 3 times and spent 8 days in jail during this entire cycle. In fact, probably the only governor candidate who's ever done that. But it helped put a spotlight. While I'm sitting in jail, I'm talking to a lot of people, hearing their stories. And, there's always two sides to the coin. But you're hearing.
The problem is, though, if they're a felon, they can't even vote for you, so it's not going to help.
Right. Well, I wasn't there.
He's just saying he understands.
I'm there to, identify. I'm a libertarian. I'm third party. I'm not expecting, a mass influx of votes, but I do want to raise issues so that other people, either the Republicans or the Democrats, either have to adopt my issues if it gets a lot of support, and also, educate people on where systems are actually broken. Because a lot of people, they don't pay attention to that. They don't know anybody who's been involved in that. So they're just thinking maybe the system is working exactly the way it is supposed to. In fact, I can tell you that it's working exactly the way it's been defined ever since the 1950s with Ronald Reagan and his war on drugs. I mean, we are putting minorities in jail. 3/4 of the people that are in our jails are nonviolent and minorities. These people should all really be released and serve some sort of home home arrest program, have them out to where they're working and they're being productive. They're spending time with their families and they're not being ostracized. And, there's so many better things to treat somebody. And some of them are, drug addicts. So they were there on drug charges. These people need help. Instead of helping people, we lock them up and then the state has to pay for it. In fact, the way the jails and stuff in North Carolina and many states across the country is they make money based off more people being in jail. So that's real. I mean, their job is to lock as many people up as they can.
Yeah.
And that's a practice that needs to be eliminated.
Yeah. Private prisons is such a systemic problem, and people bring it up, but nothing's ever done about it because it makes too much money.
Yeah.
And maybe it has to be dealt with at the state level. You know?
I feel like even Kim Kardashian's dealing with that now, though. Like that's her whole thing.
Not even. She's
is exonerated.
She frees like a couple people a year for unjust charges, but that's a good thing to focus on for sure. Well, that's great. I like a lot of your focuses, and it sounds like you're tapped into, what the people of your state care about, which a lot of politicians aren't. So, that's I'm glad you're coming on small podcasts and speaking about it. Like that's another thing that politicians don't do. They have their 20-second clip on CNN, and that's the last you hear from them. So, yeah, we appreciate it.
Oh, absolutely.
Is there anything else you feel that you want to bring up here? Like anything you feel that the average person of your state or listener should know about you?
Well, I'm heavily involved in cryptocurrencies as well. I believe.
I was going to ask about crypto. Yeah, so I was going to ask about crypto, but give us your spiel on your thoughts on crypto and its place in our future.
Well, as a libertarian, I believe in decentralizing everything, including our government. And, with the Fed and the overprinting and inflation, crypto is the solution. But crypto isn't just money, right? Crypto can be used for, NFTs. We're going to be having it inside our systems, so where when you buy a house, your house deeds will be maybe an NFT. Your graduation diplomas will be NFTs. You'll be able to kind of share all of these across. I mean, we can already do most of this. Voting will soon probably be on blockchain within the next 10 to 20 years, I imagine.
Should be already.
Should be, absolutely, because then it's as transparent as transparency can get. A lot of people say that crypto just funds drug dealers and hookers and all of that, but they're not seeing the big picture.
The U.S. dollar funds drug dealers and hookers.
Right.
Let's be real.
The American dollar is untraceable, and we drop them off in the middle of deserts everywhere around the world.
Exactly.
Along with massive pile of guns.
Exactly.
Creating our own enemy. I mean, our next enemy are people we're currently funding now. I mean, that's the Taliban came from funding from Reagan.
Exactly. And we need people in government who understand crypto and are on the right side of it, because if it gets into the control of the wrong hands, it's a nightmare situation where you have a controlled currency like the US coin or whatever, where they can literally control what you buy and they can control how much it's worth. So yeah, I'm glad it should be a forefront of everyone in government's policy list.
Yeah, I was on a call last week with a government agency, and they knew exactly how much money I had, how many accounts I had, fiat accounts, and they knew how much money I had in each account. These are things that I don't believe is the government's, and they have the ability to, take my money and shut me off. In fact, during my whole divorce issue and stuff, they tried to they froze my fiat accounts. I had to live off crypto. If it wasn't for crypto, I I would have been broke, homeless, no car, and probably dead by now. Crypto saved my life.
Wow.
Do you have a wallet you recommend using? I was actually just at the Ethereum conference in Denver. Yeah.
I use Coin. I have many of them, but I use Coinbase wallet specific. The most. The government uses Coinbase. DoD uses Coinbase. It's identified as the most secure at this time. In fact, a lot of times when the government does raids and they confiscate stuff, if crypto's involved, then they put it in their Coinbase wallets.
Coinbase wallet. Okay. That's good to know. So, if elected, what is your approach to crypto? For the next couple of years, how would you try to support it or integrate it into society?
Well, and with some of the to speak on Coinbase again real quick, they've actually done really good with their debit card because you can have a number of different currencies, cryptocurrencies, and you can say which currency you want to use your card with, and it'll convert it to fiat like that. And so that helps the usability of it. But I would also promote, it's the out of all the cards I was using, I was like, oh my God, this is amazing because now you don't have to sell it. You don't have to, pay the taxes on it during the conversion and stuff when you're, so Coinbase is the way they're doing their cards is going to help a great deal. But I would also want to make sure that our businesses are set up to accept crypto and, people kind of lose the stigma of, crypto being terrible. I've done 10-minute presentations where I can explain, how Bitcoin works and what it is and how the ledger works and how the cryptography works. So I've kind of done that, a few times trying to help people understand that. But still a lot of that's over most people's heads because they're just not into technology to begin with. And then when you start getting into cryptocurrencies, it's real easy to get too far too quick because it's a huge world. I'm in IT. I've been in crypto for 5-6 years, and I'm still learning. With all the different tokens and scams, and there's so many different things out there. But there's also so many new developments. New internet.
What are the 5 tokens right now to buy? Give us 5.
Well, the bull market right now is insane.
Yeah,
I just want to say that.
You can't not start with Bitcoin, who is blowing up with an all-time high right now.
Yeah.
Ethereum's going to follow in the same suit. And then you have Crow, which is the crypto.com. That's their token.
I don't have any Crow.
I don't have that, no.
Crow's probably going to hit $1 on this next bull run. It's probably around 10 to 15 cents right now. I haven't looked at it in a couple days.
Ooh. Can you buy that on Coinbase?
Yeah, you can buy it on Coinbase.
I'm going to buy it right now.
But then I'm a big meme token guy. I love SHIB. I made like 100K a couple years ago on it, and then have never broken up with it.
Oh, no way. That's awesome.
Yeah, it had a good run a couple weeks ago. That was really nice. But I'll dabble in and out of some of these other tokens. One of the other ones I'm in right now, like WPT, they've got like a little piggy bank one. It's about to launch. Absolutely no value, but people get into crypto. They don't really look at what the token does. It's like whatever the wave is, they jump on it.
Yeah.
Which is insane.
What are the acronyms for Crow? I'm trying to find it right now.
Oh, it's Crow it's the crypto.com company.
Oh, okay. I see it.
The stadium in California. I think Los Angeles.
You think it's going to hit $1 this year?
15
it hit $1 2 years ago. So yeah, I think it will return to that.
Wow. But you're right about the meme coin era where people are jumping on stuff.
There are a lot of tickets.
Yeah. And I get it. I respect it. But I do think with the coins that actually have some substance behind them are the ones that hopefully will be around in 20, 30, 40 years.
There's tokens like ICP. They're redefining how the internet works.
Oh, is that
So
internet computer?
Yes.
Okay, I have some of that.
Yeah, I bought some at $700 a token, and I bought some more when it was $5 a token.
Oh, shit. I
Bought
don't
it
know.
on the way down, but it's going to go back up. And those are the ones that I really like because they're useful, right? But most people aren't looking for usefulness right now. They're looking for what's gonna moon faster. Dogecoin.
As people really understand how the real financial system works, how the dollar works, how it's not tied to gold anymore, how China and Russia and India are banding together to try to create a new global currency, the faith in the dollar starts to decrease. The only thing the dollar is tied to is oil. Let's be honest here.
Yeah.
And as the need for it's crypto is just clearly going to be the future. And countries like El Salvador who have adopted it, I don't know. I sort of want to move there. And if we can have politicians who understand that getting elected, I feel like they will help with this transition, or else the transition is going to be brutal. You know what I mean? So I appreciate that you at least, understand the importance of it, because the average voter, I don't think does.
No, and it's such a big topic that it's kind of hard to educate somebody quickly on what's good versus what's bad, because you have the government controlled cryptos that you don't want, right? You have the centralized cryptos that aren't part of the whole methodology of why crypto is important. Those are ways so the government can get their hands on it and control you, and then they can follow, because people say crypto's like dark money, but to be honest with you, you can follow every transaction to see who had it, where it came from, and it is the most transparent currency out there.
So on the same vein, what do you think of the TikTok ban? Or sorry, I shouldn't call it ban because it's technically a forced divestment. What do you think about that? Because there's a lot of very... You're against it?
I'm against I think it violates the First Amendment.
I agree because right now, I mean, you probably know more than I do, but I think TikTok is the freest platform where a ton of excellent, amazing information is shared. A lot of trash information, but they're using the trash information as a way to ban it. I think it's about control, and I think it's pretty obvious. They're trying to turn it into an Instagram. You know what I mean? Where everything is banned. But can you talk on the TikTok ban?
Government controlled, because you have government agencies that are now working with Facebook, so that
there's proof of it too.
You've lost the First Amendment right on Facebook. You've lost it on Twitter. No matter what Elon says, it's still an umbrella. So, but they still, like, everything that TikTok is being accused of, those social media platforms do as well, but they are able to be government controlled through agents. It's backdoor controls, right? It's not. They try to skirt around the First Amendment by, maybe they'll fund like one particular group or private or education group, and then all of a sudden that group is working with the social media. So it's by a proxy, they are redefining what can and can't. I mean, already you see social media saying, oh, this is fake news. But is it actually fake news? I mean, during the COVID, we found that a lot of that fake news was legit. But just because the Biden administration had chose that they didn't want that information out, then it gets marked as being bunk.
And that's not how freedom of speech works, regardless of if it's fake news or not,
Right.
So
has there ever been like any news that you initially thought you know, it was presented as real news, but you thought it was fake news, and then it turned out to actually be real?
That was a complicated
Sorry,
question.
it's super meta, but like that's what the world we're in right now.
If you look at yourself,
like, so you
from a
were
computer.
presented what was real news, and then you're like, now that's fake news, and then you went back to it, and you're like, oh shit, that was real news.
Well, it's kind of been on the reverse, you know, especially during COVID. When COVID first came out, I tried my best to follow the science there, but then I realized that COVID was actually created by the United States in the 1990s and shipped overseas. And as I kind of learned more about that whole triangle, um, I realized that there was a lot more government involvement than they were sharing with us.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. There is a whole, I guess, enlightenment you can go through when you start learning about the real history of the U.S. and their involvement in foreign affairs with countries like Iran, and I mean the list goes on. It's it's crazy. It's crazy.
With the, I don't want to say too much on that, but we interfered in other people's nuclear power programs.
Yeah.
You know, the Stuxnet, that was U.S. involvement. You know, during I believe Obama at the time. But yeah, we have our hands in way too many things that we should not be doing. I mean, we're basically calling, or we believe that we're the world's police and that everybody should follow our same path, when it's not necessarily the path that other people want. I mean, that's why the Middle East hates us so much. We go in there, we take the oil, and we try to, you know, squash their way of living, whether we agree with it or not. We always got to meddle, and ultimately we're creating our own nightmares.
Yeah. So if you had to put someone in office today on the federal level, running for president, RFK, Biden, Trump, who else is really in the running? I don't know.
Yeah, there's not too many people. There's
are you an RFK man?
He's trying to ride the libertarian ticket, but he's not very libertarian. He was for the lockdowns initially. So he's got a few things in there that really kind of take him off the libertarian ticket. That I know he was trying to kind of promote himself there, and hopefully hope the party would accept him.
Play the game a little bit, yeah.
Yeah, you know, we don't need the fake libertarians. But I would prefer him over, you know, Biden and Trump. But ultimately, I voted for Chase Oliver during my primary. He's out of Georgia. Him and I follow very similar methodologies, and if he's on the ticket, that's who will earn my vote. But typically, whoever the libertarian is, I know what their stances are, because we back everything down to the central mantra of don't hurt people and don't take their stuff.
Do you know where Aleppo is?
I like that.
Do you know where Aleppo is?
Yeah, I have a general idea where Aleppo is.
Yeah, no, it's just like Gary Johnson.
Yeah.
Question a few years ago that got him.
Yeah, I went and looked it up after he didn't know.
Yeah.
I didn't know at the time.
Yeah,
I didn't know either. I didn't know either.
It's in Syria, but yeah, sorry, that's a bad joke. But yeah.
No. It's actually a great point though, because you know, while he had heard of it and he kind of knew the framework there, we don't believe in involving ourselves in every foreign conflict. You know, we want to keep the money home. We want to keep the resources home, bring the troops home, you know, not send them to every Aleppo out there, because no matter what happens, I mean, we have the Ukraine right now, you know, costing, you know, billions of dollars. And then there's like 50 other wars going that we're currently funding. They don't even make the news yet. All of these, you know, we shouldn't be funding any of it. We shouldn't be trying to pick winners and losers. We shouldn't be in the whole Israel conflict and spending money there either, because
Mhm.
we're picking who we want, or the country, the politicians are picking who they want to win, whether or not we should be involved with that or not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Shannon, we have one more interview to do tonight, but we appreciate you coming on. Maybe we can have you back on sometime soon. Is there
Yeah.
anything
Thanks
else?
for coming on.
Is there anything
Oh yeah,
else you'd like
absolutely. Whenever you want.
to shout out to us or anything?
Say that again.
Any shout outs, like where people can hear about you and Matt Ross? I was a bit
Oh yeah. Thanks. Yeah, Mike Ross. Yeah, you can
Mike Ross,
follow me
yeah.
on shannonbray.us. I'm on social media as Shannon Bray NC. So if you have any questions on Twitter or whatever, fire them off. And I'm generally pretty quick on responses of legit questions. And I'll talk about politics, crypto. I'll talk about anything. I
Awesome.
love technology, and I like social media. So
Right on. We
Awesome.
appreciate you coming on. You have a good
Yeah.
night.
Thank you
Shannon.
very much,
Thank you.
Shannon. Yeah. It was good to hear from you.
all right, talk to you guys soon. Bye.
All right.
Shannon Bray,
Shannon
everyone.
Bray. That was a great double feature. That's going to be 2 different episodes. Wall Street Bitch. Good
Yeah.
to be back. We're going to just end with her. I mean, you're always like making a new outro, but
Yeah. I've got some better outros.
Well, send me a song one day then, but here it is.